Giants have been a part of folklore and mythology since ancient times. The book of Genesis speaks of the Nephilim, a mysterious race of giants who are said to be the sons of the gods. In Greek mythology, the Gigantes were the children of Uranus and the spirits of the earth and sky. The Gigantes waged a war against the gods of Mount Olympus. In Norse culture, giants are the monsters in many myths and stories, while in North America, the natives tell tales of red-haired cannibalistic giants. Every culture in the world has its own myths and legends about giants. But could there be any truth behind these stories? In today's episode, we will look into a strange encounter that reportedly occurred in the war-torn region of Afghanistan in 2002. This is the story of the Giant of Kandahar. On November 7, 2005, author and paranormal researcher Steve Quayle appeared as a guest on the Coast to Coast AM radio broadcast. Quayle stated that he received an anonymous message from a United States Air Force officer. The officer informed Steve that the U.S. military encountered a 15-foot tall, 1,100-pound, red-haired giant in the Kandahar region of Afghanistan. This is the recounting of the story as told by the United States Air Force officer. Kandahar is a city in Afghanistan located southwest of the capital city of Kabul. Kandahar is also the capital of the province of Kandahar. In the early fall of 2002, a U.S. Army infantry unit was on routine patrol in the remote mountainous region of the Kandahar province. Halfway into their mission, all radio contact was lost with the unit. Numerous attempts were made to re-establish radio contact, but to no avail. Drones and helicopters were sent in to search for them, but yielded no results. When the unit failed to return to base at their scheduled time, orders were given to send in a platoon of Green Berets to search for the missing unit. The Green Berets are the U.S. Army's highly trained elite special forces unit. The Green Berets were inserted by helicopter into the remote mountainous region of Kandahar, where the missing Army unit was last reported before radio contact was lost. This area was known to be a hotspot for Taliban fighters, so the Green Berets remained on high alert as they searched for the missing soldiers. The first few days proved to be uneventful as the Special Forces unit saw no sign of the enemy or the missing infantry unit. As the team made their way along a goat trail, which wound its way up a mountainside, they noticed bits and pieces of electronic gear scattered along the trail. Upon closer examination, they discovered that it was from U.S. Armed Forces radio equipment. Farther along the trail, the Green Berets found more equipment, backpacks, helmets, and torn bits of U.S. Army infantry uniforms, all obviously coming from the missing infantry unit. As the Special Forces team continued to follow the trail of scattered equipment, they came across fragments of bone. At first, they couldn't tell if the bone fragments were human. The team went on high alert. it was obvious that the Army infantry unit had been ambushed and that the Green Berets could likely be walking into the same scenario. Every man in the Special Forces unit was scanning their surroundings for any signs of movement or anything that may indicate the presence of Taliban fighters. As the team cautiously proceeded, the trail opened up onto a plateau where even more bones could be seen. There was no doubt at this point whether the bones were human. There were several human skulls scattered amongst the other bone fragments and military equipment. Curiously, amongst the debris, there were discarded assault rifles and ammunition clips, some full, some empty. Taliban fighters would surely not leave such valuable trophies behind as these. Perhaps this was some kind of a trap. As the men carefully scanned their surroundings, they could see several large cave entrances where the plateau met the mountainside. The team took up defensive positions around the cave entrances, and with all of his men in place, the platoon leader, a man identified as Dan, took one other team member with him to take a closer look. With their weapons at the ready, the two men cautiously approached the largest of the cave entrances. As the two soldiers stopped at the mouth of the cave, they had their weapons drawn, ready to engage the enemy should they be encountered. The cave was very dark, and as the men came out of the sunlight, their eyes needed a moment to adjust. As the two men paused for a moment, they scanned the darkness as best they could, searching for any signs of the enemy, when suddenly the tip of an enormous spear appeared out of the blackness. With no time to react, the spear tip penetrated Dan's chest as his body was thrust several feet into the air. The other team member fell backwards out of the cave entrance, when out of the darkness emerged a terrifying sight. A 15-foot tall giant of a man with flaming red hair came out holding the spear with Dan's lifeless body still attached to the end of it. The giant let out a huge roar as he stepped out of the cave entrance. The team hesitated for just a moment as they could not believe what they were seeing. But their training immediately kicked in, and instead of panicking, the Special Forces team trained their weapons on the massive beast and opened fire. At first, the giant seemed unaffected by the Green Berets' weapons and kept walking towards them. One of the men shouted, "Aim for his face," which they did. A second later, the beast fell to its knees and landed face first. The men continued to pump rounds into the giant for a few seconds as it lay there motionless. It soon became apparent that the beast was dead. A few of the men rushed over to Dan, but it was no use. There was nothing that could be done for him. The team examined the body of the giant, whose length measured 15 feet. He had long, straggly red hair and a red beard, and was wearing clothing made from animal skins. The creature had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. The mouth contained a double row of teeth, and the body emitted a horrible stench. The team radioed into their base, and within 30 minutes, 3 heavy-lift choppers arrived at the plateau. One of the choppers used a heavy cargo net to lift the body of the giant, while the other 2 choppers transported the Special Forces unit and the body of Dan back to base. The chopper carrying the body of the creature flew directly to a military airfield where a C-130 Air Force cargo plane was waiting to receive the strange cargo. The C-130 flew the body of the Kandahar giant to a U.S. military base in Germany. The pilot of the C-130 was the U.S. Air Force officer who relayed the story to Steve Quayle. It has been rumored that the U.S. military has covered up the incident by altering the Green Beret unit's after-action report to make the incident appear as just another encounter with enemy forces. The members of the team and anyone else involved in the incident were made to sign non-disclosure agreements and were warned to never speak of it. The case remains classified, and to this day, no one seems to know what happened to the body of the Kandahar giant. In 2016, journalist and YouTuber L.A. Marzulli interviewed a man who claimed to be a Green Beret and said he was a member of the team that encountered the creature in 2002. The man, choosing to stay anonymous for obvious reasons, corroborates all the details that were discussed in today's episode. Could it be possible that we are living alongside a race of giants on our planet? Is this all some sort of hoax, or is the government withholding the truth from us? One interesting bit of information to note is that long before the incident in Kandahar, newspaper reports of giant humanoid skeletons being discovered in the US date back to the 1800s. These skeletal remains measure from 10 to 15 feet tall, have double rows of teeth, and have 6 digits on their hands and feet. Giant skeletons were reportedly found in huge burial mounds in the Ohio River Valley, another in a large burial mound in Arkansas, and yet another found at Lovelock Cave in Nevada. In all these cases, the skeletal remains have reportedly been sent off to the Smithsonian Institution, where today no evidence of their existence can be found. A monumental cover-up or a giant hoax? You be the judge. This concludes today's episode of the Paranormal Report. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. The team at the Paranormal Report really appreciates your support.